The NBA All-Star Game has never really been the peak of competitive basketball. The whole thing about how players don't really play any defense in the All-Star Game isn't a new development. Quite often, there will be an All-Star Game that raises an unusual amount of eyebrows for the lack of effort, but every now and then we'll get a game that gets everybody reinvested in the idea of the All-Star Game and proves that players will try if they want to. But at the end of the day, all it is just a chance for fans to watch their favorite players do really cool stuff on the basketball court against the other best players on the planet. It's supposed to be fun, and it's definitely not worth any player getting injured, but that's not the problem. The problems run a lot deeper than just, oh, these guys don't play any defense. That's certainly part of the problem to an extent, but I think that there's a lot more contributing to the problem than just that. So in this video, I want to take a look at the big problems with the All-Star Game and if the NBA is going to be able to fix it or if it might just be a lost cause. You have to sit through TNT fumbling through its broadcast, a Post Malone concert, and an hour of useless banter between the broadcast crew and a bunch of nothing interviews just to eventually get to the game. Then, when you finally get to the game, there's just so little defense being played that every single possession is literally either a transition pass to a wide open dunk, a drive up the middle straight to the basket, or somebody hoisting up a deep three early in the shot clock. At that point, it might as well just be a shoot around and layup lines. You'll be lucky to see 3 players even get back on defense on any given possession. And I don't want to sound like an old man when I'm talking about this, complaining about, oh, the NBA doesn't play any defense anymore. Back in the 80s, it was so much better. I'm not, and it's not like I was around or old enough to watch some of the older All-Star games that featured some of the more impressive defensive players throughout NBA history. Like I said, the lack of defense isn't the only problem, it's one of them. But the presentation of it all, the long drawn out aspects of it, make it really difficult to sit through, especially when it starts at 7:30 and the game doesn't get done until almost midnight. Now, in these clips from the earlier All-Star games, notice that these guys are repping their teams on their backs. They're warming up in their team warm-ups, representing whatever team they're a part of, the Lakers, the Celtics, the Knicks, the Bulls, whoever. They're going out there to show the world why they make their team so good, representing their fan base and trying to make them proud. Now players rep Team Giannis or Team LeBron or Team KD or whoever the team captain is for that season. They're just wearing these monochrome colored warm-ups. There might be a little logo of the team on the jacket, but it just feels so boring. This all follows the trend of the de-emphasis of teams and the new emphasis being placed specifically on players rather than the team aspect of the game. Nowadays, NBA fans don't really form attachments to teams as much as they do the players, and they'll just follow the player to whatever team they end up going to. I could spend about 2 hours explaining the death of being a fan of an NBA team, but that's for an entirely different video. My point is that the NBA has leaned so heavily into the disintegration of teams that it robs the game of any real investment. There's not really any rivalries like there were back in the 90s with the Chicago Bulls and the Detroit Pistons or the Lakers and the Celtics. All-Star games are supposed to have that aspect to them. It's what makes it exciting. It was a chance for the best players in the world to go at one another on the biggest stage and show why their team is the best and not this other guy's team. The NBA used to use the All-Star game as a chance to fuel and foster these rivalries. Look at this clip from the 1990 NBA All-Star game where they introduce Isaiah Thomas right before introducing Michael Jordan. This kind of stuff was just little things that helped foster some healthy rivalries, some healthy bad blood, and really fueled the fan base's investments in their teams. And that just doesn't exist anymore. Now back to the presentation for a little bit. There was just so much unnecessary filler. It felt like they tried to pack way too much into such a small amount of time, and it made the whole thing feel really drawn out. The picking of the teams was pretty awkward to me, and I really think that it should just take place prior to the day of the All-Star game or a week earlier. Doing it live on stage felt really uncomfortable. It took a really long time. The broadcast was constantly messing up. Just have a separate TV slot to pick teams like they did last year instead of doing it live right before the game. Don't do a concert before the game. Keep halftime a normal, reasonable amount of time. If you have a ceremony that you want to do, great. Do it and then move on. Nobody's turning on their TV to watch a Post Malone concert before the All-Star game. While it might be cool and while some people might enjoy it, at the end of the day, we're there to watch the All-Star game. We're not there to watch all of the extra stuff that comes along with it. Now, like I said earlier, just about every single year, people complain about the lack of defense in the All-Star game, which I get it. It's not always fun to watch zero defense whenever you're watching a basketball game. But to me, the offense was equally as unentertaining as the lack of defense was. It's one thing to get by the defense and get to an open lane so that you can throw down some crazy dunk contest dunk. That's something Ja Morant did a couple of times last night, and it was really, really enjoyable. But it's another thing to get out into open space in the lane, and then you ultimately just end up putting up a simple layup. This whole game felt like a glorified layup line and a shoot around. People didn't pay to watch that. People didn't turn on their TVs to watch that. Anthony Edwards actually kind of summed all of this up in an interview recently where he was talking about the idea of load management and how much time players are missing now, and the fact that fans pay and sometimes drive hundreds of miles or fly thousands of miles to come see their favorite player play in an NBA game only for them to be load managing or out with an injury. And I thought what he said sums all of this up really well.
If there's anything I could change about the league to make it better, probably just all the guys sitting resting. That's the only thing I probably don't like. Just play, man. If you 80%, you got to play. I don't like all the sitting, missing games and stuff. Like these people might have enough money to come to one game. You know what I'm saying? And that might be the game they come to, and then you sitting out. You know what I'm saying? So I take pride in trying to play every game because I don't know. It might be one fan that has never seen me play, and I'm trying to play. So that's the only thing I don't like. Guys just sitting out.
Fans are going to be less inclined to pay money in the future if they know that they're just going to go to an all-star game and just end up watching players take layups and shoot threes. I think most importantly, though, this type of play during an all-star game isn't going to help grow the game and spread the popularity of the league. It's one of the most viewed games throughout the entirety of an NBA season, and if it sucks, people are just going to tune into it, see that it's not very interesting, and think that this is a reflection of what basketball is like. They're going to turn it off, and they're never going to watch an NBA game ever again. There still needs to be a level of basketball being played so that it's interesting enough that people tune in and say, hey, I really enjoy this. I'm going to start watching NBA games going forward. I'm now interested in the NBA. I'm an NBA fan. Eventually, people are just going to lose interest. They're going to stop watching. The frustrating thing, too, is that it's not like we haven't seen players be willing to try and play hard during an all-star game before. As recently as 2020, we had one of the most exciting endings to an all-star game ever. There was tons of defense being played and effort being given. Kyle Lowry was drawing charges. There were chase down blocks. Everyone felt really invested, and it was one of the more memorable All-Star games ever. And then it's been followed up by a few really, really disappointing All-Star games. Now, you could make the claim that it's just the fans that care about this. The players don't really care. The coaches don't care. No one wants to get injured. They're on vacation. They're ready to get on their planes and go to wherever they're taking the week off. But that's not the case. There were players and coaches that were upset about the level of effort that was being played and the level of basketball that was being played in the All-Star game. Western Conference All-Stars coach Michael Malone said it was the worst game of basketball he's ever seen. Kyrie Irving said he didn't like the lack of effort and he was disappointed. Jaylen Brown also said that he thinks it's a problem, but he doesn't really know what can be done to fix it. When players are realizing that it's a problem how little effort is being given, then you know that there's some credence to that feeling that something's wrong. But the big question is, what can even be done to fix it? The truth is, there's not really a whole lot. The NBA has really tried to incentivize it with the charity aspect, which I think is great, and they should give as much money to charity as humanly possible. But at the end of the day, regardless of who wins and regardless of how much effort is being given, those charities are going to get money no matter what. So if that's the case, why would that make the players try any more or any less? To me, there's a couple of different options. There's some sort of home court advantage aspect to it, where the winning conference gets home court advantage in the finals. Add some sort of financial incentive where you get X amount of money if you exceed some sort of requirement. If you can't incentivize it though, just scrap the game entirely. I'd rather the NBA make All-Star Weekend just be the dunk contest, the three-point contest, the skills challenge, and then maybe some sort of 1v1 tournament or something small that doesn't require an entire All-Star game. Because if the All-Star game is just not going to be a good product, then why even put it out there? It's not a good representation of the NBA. It doesn't do a good job of growing the league and growing the popularity of the sport. So if that's the case, why do it at all? I get that it's tradition, but there's no need to waste anybody's time if the players don't want to be doing it and it's not fun for the fans to watch. So I'm curious, do you guys have any ideas for what the NBA can do to make the All-Star game better? Do you think there's anything they even can do? Do you think that they should just scrap the All-Star game entirely? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to see more stuff like this, be sure to subscribe and leave a like on the video. That's the #1 way to support me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.